is Coenen. I work at the University of Brussels, but the Flemish-speaking part, which is at the other side of the street. I've been looking at social networking systems from a research perspective. And well, today me and my colleague Wouter and Bosch would like to share our perspectives with you about how social networking systems can become elements in the professional area, and how this will be a challenge to content management systems. Okay, so I have to look at this screen to see what I'm talking about. So what will we be discussing today? First of all, we will explain why we think that professional users will become increasingly interested in social networking systems, and we will explain how a system like Drupal needs to be extended in order to meet the needs of more business-oriented users. We'll be talking about the motive, so the why we think the social networking systems are interesting. We'll be discussing some lessons that we have learned by building social networking systems using Drupal. And we'll be discussing our vision, so how content management systems can meet the needs of professional users. Well, before we go to the more concrete aspects, I'm going to give you an introduction of the way I see social networking systems and how this fits in the whole story on innovation and creativity and knowledge management, because that's actually my background. I come from business background in knowledge management. So I look at social networking systems, well, from a social perspective, and one of the things that is very important today in the sociology literature is social capital. So what is social capital? Well, a rough definition would be that these are the advantages which you derive from your social network. So everyone has a social network, you know people, and you can derive resources from these people. This can be either love, because you know your friends and they give you emotional support, but this could also be money. If you know a banker, for example, or you have a wealthy grandma, it might be easier for you to buy a house. But one of the things that I am looking at is information. So how does your social network, how does this influence the way you access information? And this is still, even in the area of the internet, a very important way of how we become creative and how we access our information. So through the social network we have. So one of the advantages of organizations and markets, if you compare organizations to more fluidly organized sets of people working together, is that they create social capital. Because, well, one of the very simple facts is that you just put people together, they talk to each other, and in doing this they create this social capital that is really one of the driving aspects of today's innovation. This occurs because the organization is a vehicle for building social capital indeed. What are the components of social capital? Well, very quickly, there are three different types. Cognitive social capital. So the first time you meet somebody, it will often be quite difficult to talk to him or to her because you don't share the same cognitive mindset. So you need some time to be able to understand what the other person is saying. This is not always a problem, but with some people it can be. Relational social capital is also important because these are the elements that apply to a relationship and that will allow things to flow more freely over your relationship. For example, norms are an example of social capital, relational social capital that say that, for example, if I ask one of you a question, then you will try to give me a polite reply. This could be a norm. If this norm would not exist, well then the way in which we exchange information could be hindered. And last of all, and this is actually the part that I've been looking at most, is the structural social capital. So these are actually the advantages that you derive from the nature of your social network itself. This can be, for example, either a very distributed network, where you have contacts with people in different aspects of the global social network, or it can be very centralized, very dense, where actually the people you know all know each other. And each of these types of contacts will have, well, different properties that relate to your innovation and creativity. So, yeah, as you probably know, the relationship between people can be represented as a world-spanning social network. This is the 6 degrees of separation story. People in the United States, they have been found through an experiment to be able to contact each other through an average of 6 social hubs. So there's a whole literature now that focuses on the structure of your social network and the way this impacts your performance in different aspects of life. Sources of structural capital can be either bridging or bonding. So there are different types of structural social capital, so the way your social network looks. Either it is bridging, which is a situation where actually the people that you know, they don't know each other. So for example, you have one group of friends that plays ping pong, and you have one group of friends that are Drupal developers, and well, they actually don't know each other. This is an example of bridging social capital. You are actually the bridge between the ping pong club and the Drupal developers. Then bonding social capital is the other situation where, well, actually the ping pong club members and the Drupal members, they all know each other as well. So actually this is one big dense cluster. So this is an example of bonding social capital. So you see that the focal node here knows all the other people that also know each other. Very dense. And this one is more sparse. Here the focal node knows other people as well, but these people, for example, they don't know each other. So this could be the ping pong club, this could be the Drupal developers. And throughout literature, by doing research in these kind of systems, in this kind of areas, they have found that there are certain performance metrics, like for example the wage you get, the number of innovative ideas you can produce, your well-being, your like emotional well-being, that there is actually a link with the way your social capital is structured. For example, if you have a lot of bonding, social capital, where ties are strong, you can have strong ties or you can have weak ties with people, well then you will on average be a more happy person because you have this emotional support. If something goes wrong with you, you can always go, you have friends to whom you can talk, and they will hopefully support you. Also, what happens there is that it is easier to foster trust and norms, things that you need in order to be able to communicate with other people. Also, another advantage of bonding social capital, so just to remind you, we are in the situation, so this situation, so dense cluster, is the high speed of knowledge traveling. So when a person learns something, this one, well then the time it will take until this person may also obtain this piece of information is much lower than in this situation where there is only one path from this node to this node, whereas in the other situation there are more paths. So the speed at which information travels within these bonding social networks there is higher. Bridging social capital, on the other hand, is good for the diversity of information. So if actually what happens is that in each of the social clusters there is a higher probability that people know the same thing. In the ping pong club there is a higher probability that everybody will, for example, have the same kind of music taste, just because they talk to each other about music and oh, this is a good song and blah blah, and it evolves, and they might share the same music taste. So the homogeneity of information within a social cluster is much higher. So that means that if you can connect to different social clusters, well, then you have a good situation to get diverse information. And this diversity of information has actually been linked to creativity. So one of the engines of creativity is being able to extract a theme or a concept from one area and apply it to another area. For example, a biologist that uses concepts from physics to solve a problem in a new way, but another biologist that doesn't have these contacts with the people in the physics area would not have been able to think of. So this is one of the elements that is important, or that has been linked to bridging social capital, innovation and creativity, and of course this is one of the things that you may be able to obtain if you use social networking systems. Only the problem is that this does not really take place in the social networking systems as they exist today. This has been shown by the most recent research in social networking systems and the way in which people actually build their social network, which I will discuss in a moment. So I've already told you this. This is the knowledge redundancy story. I've told you this also. This is the creativity study. This is actually an interesting slide because one of the guys that is really very known for his research in creativity, Ronald Bird, he has come up with the idea that actually if you want to create a good group of people that work together in a productive way and that are also creative, then actually your group should look like this. So you have high internal, so you have a very dense network within the group. People talk to each other, so there is a lot of information traveling around very quickly within the group. If this person knows something, this person will know it quite quickly. But each of these people also has like a lot of contacts with other groups outside of their department or their team or whatever this group could be. Don't think that this is normal, because often either this doesn't exist, people actually don't talk to each other in the department, or well, people talk to each other too much and they don't share information with people outside of their department. So this is actually something that needs to be worked on in today's organizations. So this kind of idea that you need like bonding social capital, but you also need bridging social capital, be able to reach out to other people and talk to them and transfer and embed their knowledge, has been or is quite pervasive in a number of current business-oriented paradigms. The ones that I will briefly discuss are digital business ecosystems, open innovation, and the flat world. So, digital business ecosystems is like an idea that has really been quite heavily developed in the Framework 6 EU research goal, and that looks at a situation where we have evolved from this. So not a lot of interconnections, or interconnections really within one, for example, geographical region, and the critical resource is physical. For example, people work with they work with metals, or they work with like any other, like wood, these kind of things. So really kind of old industry type, and we have slowly moved to a situation where there is a lot of interconnection, and the critical resource has become knowledge. You've all heard the old story of Europe wanting to be a very efficient knowledge society. Well, actually, we are not entirely there, because these interconnections, well, they are slowly being built, but it takes time, and it is often a painstakingly hard process to create them and maintain them and like really order them as it becomes very complex. So one of the things that business ecosystems wants to do is look at the challenges that exist in these areas. So it tries to organize, to network organizations in order to innovate collaboration. and organizations are encouraged to share knowledge. And the question is, well, what is necessary in order to achieve this? Another really important idea that a lot of companies, also in Belgium, but in the whole of Europe, even in the whole of the world, are actually embracing, is the idea of open innovation, which is a book that has been written by this person in 2003, and that actually says that if you are an organization and you want to innovate, then you should not be looking only at the innovations that have been created within the boundaries of your organization. No, you should actually scan the whole knowledge landscape, and you should also import knowledge from outside your boundaries and be able to recombine it within your own business model. And for this, of course, you need connections with the outside world, and you may consider using systems like social networking systems to do so, instead of going to conferences and talking to people, which is, of course, fine and very interesting and all that. But it could be that there is a lot of potential in actually using social networking systems to do a small part of this networking activity. Yeah, so that's actually summing up this last paragraph. And then there's The Flat World, a book written by a guy called Friedman in 2005, that says that, well, the world has become a whole different playing field. The playing field has been leveled. People from all over the world are starting to work together or compete with each other. For example, you have Indian people working, what's it called? Where you go? No. Like if you have a problem with your fridge and you are in the States and you call the company to complain about your fridge that isn't working. Sorry? Call centers, there you go, thank you very much. Call centers in India is an example of the flat world. So actually, what this guy Friedman says is that new competing and new collaborative technologies have been developed that allow people to work together over the whole world, and we should learn to adapt to this. I know that for some of you this is not new stuff. The only thing that I want to convey to you is that companies are actually, a lot of companies do not realize this, so this is an important message for them to grasp, and they are only very slowly grasping it in areas like, for example, the banking sector. Yeah. Okay, I won't discuss this today. So, sharing knowledge between individuals stimulates innovation and is part of multiple current business paradigms. And the question is how to do this. Well, it might be interesting to look at social networking systems in order to do this. And now I will give the words to my colleague Wouter, who will discuss some lessons that we learned by doing projects and tell you how we see our vision for the future.
Clearly audible? Perfect. So, Tanguy has given you a good introduction and a good idea of the potential social networking systems have within the European and worldwide business networks and organization networks. And this topic has been the subject of a number of research activities Tanguy and myself have been involved in over the last couple of years. And it has given us the opportunity to work with both interesting technology like Drupal to provide the technology to support these kinds of theories. And as well as get in touch with a lot of organizations and businesses that are eagerly looking forward to using those technologies and to using those principles in their workings. And so we've had the chance to see what those people's needs are, and partly that is the reason why we are here today, because you're developers, you're very technical people, you're very creative technical people, but in order for you to make the right products for organizations wanting to use this technology, this kind of background might be interesting. So let's maybe start with a definition so that we all have the same idea of what we're talking about here. What is a social networking system? And in this very basic state, Boyd and Ellison have defined it as a system that is capable of three things. Well, to construct a public or a semi-public profile of yourself within a system, and then to have the ability to connect with other people, so articulate a list of other people which only share a connection, and then to have the ability to look at those connections and those connections other people make within the system. Now, this is a very, very simple view of a social networking system. It used to be valid for only, I think, LinkedIn, but even LinkedIn these days offers so much more functionalities, like the ability to make groups and things like that. Over the last few years, we've seen a whole lot of social networking systems come up, emerge, and die out again. We've seen a lot of systems like incorporating social networking principles within their work. So, for example, the Windows Live Spaces recently, in 2006, started introducing a lot of social networking principles. We all know that social networking systems are here to stay and that there's big business in them. The fact that there's big business in them has already been shown in the last few years. MySpace was bought over by Rupert Murdoch's News Corp for a whole lot of money. And we saw in 2007, we saw Microsoft investing a whole lot of money in a very tiny part of Facebook. And even Google has seen the potential of social networking systems and has introduced the Open Social Initiative, which we probably all know about here. So it's really it's obvious that social networking systems have a lot of business and societal value, and so there's a big challenge for content management systems out here, like Drupal, to address those challenges and to be able to provide the solution for those challenges. Now, we've seen that social networking systems hold the promise of bridging those building, bridging social capital online. But what we've seen in our research and in other research is that this doesn't just happen spontaneously. Like, new networks don't just evolve once you provide a platform like a social networking system. People just don't start making new connections, and the whole thing doesn't start spontaneously. We see that mostly people get on a social networking system like Facebook, and what they do is they connect with the friends they already have, the friends they already know from their offline experiences, face-to-face experiences. So it's very funny to see that there's an offline focus online. Right? Of course, we do meet some new people, but the percentage of new connections is rather low. So that is a challenge we still need to overcome if we would like to address, if we would like to make use of all those great possibilities that bridging social capital has. Now, another problem is that when we provide a number of organizations and businesses with a social networking system, is that it doesn't just become a very active system out of itself. There is a problem with what we call the critical mass. A system needs to have a certain number of users before people actually start using it in great numbers. You don't want to be active in a system all by yourself. You want to be active in a system when you know that a whole lot of people from your social entourage actually are active in that system as well. So, like in a nuclear reaction, you have to reach a certain critical mass before all those new people will start appearing and contributing on that system. So that is a big challenge. We've seen that in a lot of organizations, that you throw a system at their feet, and people, one or two people use it, and then become very unhappy because nobody else uses it, and even those few people that really wanted to go for it just lose their interest and don't use it. So that is a big challenge. Another challenge is the ownership problem. A lot of businesses are very interested in using social networking systems, but have a lot of questions about what happens to our data. And we've seen Mr. Scoble trying to data mine Facebook in the beginning of this year. He got kicked out of Facebook because he tried to do so. What happens to your data, and especially for businesses when we're talking about business critical data, they have a lot of questions of where can we store it, and if we come to your system, can we take some of our data with us, and when we go away again, can we take it back? That is a very big question businesses have, and we need to address that in order to make use of social networking systems in the professional area. So another challenge, another problem is that a lot of businesses already have their own systems, and they don't want to just start using yet another system. So that is, we were involved in a project that college schools and universities could interact with each other online, but they already had their own systems, and they just didn't use the new system. So it might be interesting to have the possibility to contribute to systems like that from already existing systems. A number of other important topics which should still be addressed in social networking systems, a number of features that would be very interesting to facilitate social networking systems are these here. Tanguy already touched upon a couple of them. Norm building. We need to have, in a social networking system, we need to have features that support the building of norms. And by norms we mean what is acceptable within a group. When you put a group of people together, suddenly norms start to emerge. People start to making deals about what is acceptable behavior and what isn't. This is very easy when you put us together in a room and we start talking to each other. We decide not to fight with each other, I decide not to hit Tanguy in the face. He likes that, but I don't do it. But online that isn't that easy to do because the way we interact with each other online is very crude. So social networking systems still need to address and need to provide ways in which norm building can happen. An example of a very important norm is reciprocity. The fact that I do something for you and I know that you're going to do something for me back later. Generalized reciprocity is that it happens within a group. I do something for you guys and I know that at some point I will get my investment back and somebody of you will do something for me. This is very important for big groups, for groups of people, because it has a big impact on the way the group engages itself in order to address certain topics collaboratively. Another important thing is trust. I need to trust you guys online. I need to know that you will do stuff in my interest, even when you could do something else. And once again, it is a challenge to take that to the digital level. How it happens in real life is that I will probably trust people that Tanguy trusts, because I already trust Tanguy. I'm not sure if that is a good thing, but still. So having a way to see which people in my network trust other people would maybe allow me to trust people that I don't really know. And it also accounts for distrusting people. So it would be interesting to have that in an online environment. Then there is individual and collective meaning negotiation. So once again, when trying to build norms and stuff like that, we need to have a way to say, okay, what does this concept mean to you before we go on? And then there is two other points that are very important. The fact that in real life we communicate with each other in very nuanced ways. You could be looking at me very sleepily, so, which would mean that maybe I am boring and you're giving me that signal. So once again, online is like a lot of social networking systems don't really give us that opportunity to have that very nuanced activity interaction. Awareness is the fact that when we arrive in a virtual space, we like to know who else is there. We like to let the rest of the group know that we are there. We like to get the attention to us. So awareness systems are also a very interesting thing to have within a social networking system. So all of these things that I've talked about are interesting to have within a social networking system in order to make it useful and in order to make it efficient and in order to make it work. So a number of mechanisms, a number of architectures are interesting in order to achieve these goals. And I think we're at 4 o'clock, but I'll I still have some time, that's great. And a number of challenges I'd like to address here. First of all, we've talked about the fact that there's a lot of focus on the offline interactions. We like to get to know, we connect with people online that we already know offline, so a possible road to go into would be that we have a better co-evolution of how we interact with each other offline and take that online. This is actually the focus of a research project Tanguy and myself just sent in which we were going to try to look at how offline meetings could actually be taken to an online environment and supported further there. And also we'd like to look in that research project on how offline activities can be adjusted to the way we interact online as well. So if you're interested in this, let us know and we'll keep you up to date on this project. But another interesting idea which addresses things like data portability and data ownership are initiatives like Open Social. The initiative Google launched in November of 2007, in which they tried to say like, well, okay, we're going to have all these applications online. We're going to make a standard in which they can interact with each other. And that is very interesting. Another challenge in the Open Social idea is the fact that we will be able to host data on Open Social servers or not. This is a very interesting point. So an immediate challenge of social networking systems is the fact that we should reposition ourselves in order to work with projects like Open Socials. We have to think about new architectures, very modular architectures. And an important question here, especially for businesses and organizations, is once again, who keeps the data? Am I going to put my business-sensitive data on Google servers? I think not. That's something a lot of businesses would say. So there is an opportunity here for systems like Drupal to be open social containers, to be able to enable companies to actually interact and leverage the possibilities of the open social architecture, but still keep control over their own data. So I'll be looking forward to see Drupal move towards open social and to see which interesting architectures flow out of this. Another architecture that Jeff Reifman, an open source developer, suggested was this architecture. Seeing the time, I'm not going to go into it too much, but take a look at his website where he explains it all. It's actually very interesting. The fact is here that you have at the base of your whole social networking system architecture, you have a lot of systems that allow you to have that allow profile hosting. So you would have, for example, a Drupal installation or a social installation where you would be able to host your profile and your data, or you would be able to do it yourself, and all these systems would interconnect with each other, so you would have control over your own data and profile, and on top of that, a whole lot of plugins would be installed and developed. The concept of data portability also took form in an initiative called Data Portability. Dataportability.org describes the whole thing, where a lot of technologies are put together in order to support the fact that there is a need for portability of user profiles in this time, and in this day and age of numerous social networking systems. It is a hassle to to make your profile again and again every time, to again and again establish who your network is, and once again take your data and start importing it. It would be much better if you would be able to take all of this information, including your backlog of blogs in this area, to other systems just like this. So we have a need for an advanced control of data. Some data will be open, and I would like to share with you. Other data is very personal. Some data, I don't mind that it stays in the system, blogs about me going on holiday, for example, but my business data, perhaps I'd like to take out again once my business in a certain social networking system is gone. So, back to the businesses again. We've talked to a lot of businesses that are very interested in using social software, social networking systems in order to stimulate open innovation and all that. They'd like to get in touch with other interesting companies, but their main issue is that they need to have a system that allows them to carefully choose which companies they they contact and share their data with. And that is not so easy to take online, because if you're in a room, we can go ahead and contact other people and say, like, oh, which company are you from, what do you do? And at that moment I can make an evaluation of whether or not I would let you in on my great innovative idea. The example that somebody brought up to me was the fact that I have this great idea of this very small umbrella, but I don't want to throw it out in a group, just like this, so that other people can start making my umbrella themselves. So we need systems that can intelligently, in an intelligent way, formulate who my audience is, so that I can share that data with those people I really need to share that data with. So this calls for a very advanced access system that is currently not available. People like Mixel have been working on prototypes of those access systems, and you've made a lot of progress in that, but still there's a lot of challenges to be addressed here. Another interesting mechanism that still needs a lot of work in social networking systems, and those content management systems, is the fact that we have a lot of social networks we are active in, a lot of systems, a lot of websites we interact with, and there is little or no repercussions for our actions there at the moment. We can just go ahead and reply on each other's blogs or whatever, and we'll be safe because we're protected by the anonymity of the internet. So, but reputation is a very fundamental element in collaboration and in society. So we need systems that are available, that allow us to manage our reputation in a very wide set of interactions. And we need systems that have the ability to take that reputation with us when we go to other social networking systems, so that I can arrive in a group in a social networking system with my reputation from other interactions. And then another last mechanism I'd like to present, which might be interesting for social networking systems to implement, is the concept of stick merging. So a process is stick merging when the actions of one agent, A, leads another agent or another number of agents to continue that action, and thus giving us the idea that it's all a grand scheme of things. The example here is the way an ant collective works. It goes like this: the ant crawls out of the nest in the morning, finds a little piece of bread, and is overjoyed with the fact that it's too big, so it goes back with a little piece of the bread to the nest, and in the process leaves a trail of pheromones. And other ants come out of the nest and find those pheromones and follow the pheromones up to the little piece of bread, and so a whole highway of ants go to the bread. That's how it works. So it's very interesting to implement those concepts in social networking systems to allow for self-organizing systems to be created. An example of these systems is, for example, Wikipedia. I put a little snippet of my knowledge online, and you feel the urge to correct me because I am utterly wrong. Another example of using stigmergy in a social networking system would, for instance, be a project management module in which people would be able to create issues and then vote on which issues are most interesting to them to be solved right away, so contributors will know which things to address first. So these social networking systems, these stigmerging mechanisms are very interesting to create, to limit the amount of centralized controls we would need in such systems. So these are a whole lot of ideas, a whole lot of mechanisms, a whole lot of architectures, a whole lot of reasons to why social networking systems could be useful for businesses, and we do see that businesses are becoming more and more interested in all these mechanisms. They want to employ them. So the challenge is now to the Drupal community and to the community of developers of other platforms to enable their CMS to adhere to address those needs and to make Drupal into a content management system that can move into the future, which is very social networking driven. So thank you for your attention today. We hope that we've been able to inspire you, to give you some ideas for creating your core modules and create new contributed modules. And if you're interested in one of those things we've talked about, please don't hesitate to contact us because we like to talk about it a lot. Thank you.